Okay, thank you, Theo. Thanks for the applause. And yeah, I'm really honored to start this day with the first session. Well, I have to say it's my first online conference, so I love to be on stage and do my thing. Let's see how it works out today here. Okay, yeah, check. So that's me, Tobias Limbach. I'm a pneumotectist, usability engineer since 15 years. A lot of time in the medical device development. I'm currently at Hilrom in München, in Munich. And I do also some teaching at different universities in Germany and Switzerland. And my passion is user research, processes, and yeah, teaching people how to make better medical devices, actually. And yeah, one thing that I would like to focus on today is the integrating use risk in the medical device development process. Because to err is human. Nice poem by Alexander Pope from the UK or England. He got this right. Everybody makes mistakes. So like this, sometimes really funny mistakes. We can all laugh about this, but also sometimes we have really bad mistakes. Just as a few examples here, it was 30 years ago or 31 years ago in the UK. Very well trained pilot had a problem during takeoff. Boeing changed the dials shortly before that on the plane. They changed the position of the dials and the visual design of the dials as well. And this unfortunately contributed to an error, a use error by the pilot. And there was one engine had problems. He wanted to turn it off. Accidentally, it turned off the good engine, so he had no engine anymore, and that led, unfortunately, to a tragic accident, which was not solely caused by bad user interface design, but it certainly contributed in this situation very much to this tragic accident. Another example from medical devices, actually from the UXPAR magazine. So a glucose meter, so patients have to measure their blood sugar levels, and the dot in between the two and the two ciphers it looks beautiful, I think, from solely design perspective. But if you think how the users can see this from a slight distance, maybe, or if they're visually impaired, like I am, so when I don't have my glasses on, I don't see that much. And it's really, really easy to make a wrong assumption here, so that people actually misinterpreted this interface. And then this led in several cases, unfortunately, also to a wrong medication. So they put, they thought that 22 million of glucose in their blood, but there was only 2.2, so they treated themselves wrong, which can really lead to severe consequences. So this is bad design from a medical device, led to a recall, completely recall. So very obvious statement, bad design can have real-world consequences. I'm not going to say if we design a website or if you design some software application from enterprises, the consequences are usually not that grave. Yeah? If I, by accident, empty my shopping cart, I get angry, but maybe it doesn't have that much consequences. But for medical devices, there can be patient harm, or there can be really different things that can happen. So how should we then design a good medical device? And please note, I'm settling here for a good medical device. I don't want to have the best medical device or the most innovative or whatever, I'm honestly satisfied with a good medical device, which means it works, it's effective. Yeah, the patients get treated and they have a better clinical outcome in the end. So it doesn't hurt people, and we can use it. That, for me, would be a good medical device. The colleagues from Corvus Device made this really nice chart I found a few weeks ago on the internet, and this basically sums it up. So we want to have a safe device from a risk perspective. We as designers want to have, of course, a usable device, and the quality guys also want to have effective device, of course. But this is now the thing where risk management, design control, human factors have to really join forces, sit together in endless meetings, and in the end create a safe and usable device. No device is going to be ever risk-free, because humans make a tremendous amount of error and then have really creative capabilities to create errors. But we want it to be as safe as possible in the intended use environment, in the intended use, and in the end, so that we can honestly say, okay, this device is good, it's effective, it's safe, and it's usable. So let's look a bit at how we can then implement this into our processes. Oh, first, yeah. Why should we do this? Especially the safe and usable part. Very easy. I always wanted to say this because it's the law. Probably, hopefully, have heard about the EU MDR, the Medical Device Regulation. And in the Annex 1, Chapter 3, General Requirements, it says manufacturers, blah, blah, should establish, estimate and evaluate the risks associated with and occurring during the intended use and during reasonably foreseeable misuse. I don't like the reasonably foreseeable misuse. I think that's a bit wishy. But it says here, so we as a manufacturer have to estimate and evaluate risk associated with the intended use. And that is, from my perspective, very, very important, because now medical device developers cannot just ignore this anymore. So we really have to have a connection between risk management and UX design, human factors, and all those guys. So we really have to follow this. If you want to have a good overview about the MDR requirements, usability, I really recommend the blog from Professor Jona, it's down here, the Jona Institute. He has a really good checklist, and he says this is very clear what requirements that the EU MDR has. So back to this topic. How then do we go on? First, we should risk assess the use. At the beginning of your idea, if you develop a new product, please think about what could go wrong, what could be the worst things that can go wrong for the patient. You will have to make your classification. It's a medical device class 1, 2, 2A, 2B, 3, whatever. And also, of course, depending on this, on the environment where you are, what you do to the patient, there will be certain risk categories and they basically determine also the amount of resources you have to put into your development process. So if you know you're going to develop an active implant which the user can manipulate with their smartwatch or whatever, you really have to put a lot of resources into this development, into the safe and usable part of the process. If you're doing a class 1 medical device which basically cannot hurt anybody, you probably are okay when you do a limited amount of things. But of course, this is part of the process, so please document this and make really, the beginning, a justified decision why you are putting those resources into here. Yeah, and it's also good part or the point in time to get your risk manager on board. Risk manager usually, the guys I know, they think about the electrical things that can go wrong, gravity things that can go wrong, biohazards, whatever. And I really recommend to sit down with those with this team and define, so what is your use, what are your use scenarios, and see what can go wrong from a user perspective. Yeah, so that basically doing something wrong is the own risk category further on in the process. Then this is the fun part. We need to identify use errors. I'm going to say everything that a user can do wrong at one point in time, somebody will do wrong. I don't have evidence for this, but I have lots of experience in different clinical settings, and it's amazing what people do wrong. Not purposefully, but they just don't know better, or it's sometimes even a clinical practice, or it just needs to be done this way. And of course, we all need to go to the users, observe users, and sometimes it's hilarious what they do with your devices, but really go out, talk to them, observe them, and you will see device uses that you probably haven't thought about yet. So you need to know what people are doing, because then you can identify what can go wrong. And as said before, MDR dictates now you have to think about use scenarios and what can go wrong in them. One method I use, or like to use, also teach in university, is the usability failure modes effects analysis. So it's basically an FMEA, and just you put the usability in front. And this is an exercise I do with the students. So I take thermometer, very simple medical device, and we go through this usability FMEA together. First, of course, we define what harm can be done there. So it's for the thermometer, it's a delay in therapy. Probably should have chosen a different example without so many THs. So we can have delay in therapy or wrong diagnosis. And those are things that can go wrong, that can actually harm the patient. And I usually do it very simple in an Excel list or on a whiteboard or whatever. We look at the tasks that people have with the thermometer. Just here for the example, we have one thing, you have to recognize the audio signals when the measurement is complete. The digital thermometer usually makes a beep or whatever, and then says its measurement is complete. So we have use errors that can happen. It may lead to hazardous situations, and that may lead to harm in the end. It's very important. It's not going to happen every time, but sometimes if things pile up and go wrong, then in the end there might be harm. So if you look at this, user task recognize the audio signal. A use error can be the audio signal is not recognized for whatever reasons. I don't know, maybe hard of hearing, maybe too loud music in the background, or distracted. We don't know. We don't care at this point. The hazardous situation then is the user doesn't see that the measurement is actually complete, and this thermometer stays in mouth. What's the harm? Nothing. You probably look stupid after 10 minutes with the thermometer in your mouth, and you should take it out before you eat something, but that's really nothing that can harm the patient. Different situation, a different use error, the audio signal is misinterpreted, and for some reason then the user takes it out, and they have to do the measurement again in the end because it was not complete, and this can lead to a delay in therapy. So this looks very simple. We have, I think, about 8 or 10 tasks that we can do with the thermometer, like cleaning, changing batteries, etc., etc. And I remember I started this 3 years ago, I think, and we had about 25 use errors and brainstormed, and I think now we are like 40, 45 use errors, which I didn't know, I didn't see, but the students came up with stuff. It was really helpful to have some moms in there who measure their kids very often. So, and remember, this is a really easy product. Yeah, it has only one interface and only 8 tasks, but we are now at about, let's say, 45 use errors that can lead to harm, actually. And with a more complex device, I did have, I think, 600 use errors on one device I designed. So there's really a lot of things that people can actually do wrong. Yeah, a quote. Sorry, I couldn't find anymore who said this. I remembered it from somewhere. So the best way to do a really good usability FMEA is to bring your 5-year-old kids to the workshop and see how they actually use the device, because they will find ways that you as an engineer, as a designer, just didn't think about. Yeah, kids are super creative and they do whatever with your device. Probably most of them is not really relevant, but they might come up to something where you, as an engineer, as a designer, didn't think about how actually they could use this device. And it's fun. Roles I would include, obviously, UX people, engineering, marketing, product owner, risk management, and very important, user representatives. So if you have access to users, invite them, maybe not for the whole time, but for the last 2 or 3 hours, and just make a sanity check with them that you can get live feedback, so to say. Because you engineers are going to say, you're not supposed to do that with the device. Yeah, I just did it. And nobody will ever do it this way. I had this feedback in several workshops, but I just did it this way. And somebody will do it. And then my favorite users know how to use the device correctly. Surprise, they don't most of the times. They just use it. So those workshops can be really enlightening. Yeah, and usually people learn a lot here. Then, of course, the last but not least part, we have to actually design something. But from my perspective, here is really, really important. If you design something, of course, as designers, we think our designs are always good and they change the world. But of course, we have to check. Now we design something new. Do we now have the possibility for new use errors? Did we change the existing use errors? Is the hazardous situation, is the harm maybe worse in the end, or is it lighter in the end? So unfortunately, with medical devices, I mean, everybody knows that. There's lots of documentation. This, for me, proved to be really, really worthwhile to start this very, very early, and to do all the 600-700 lines of use error assessment really, really early, because then I can see if I change the interface here at this point for this task, for this use error, what can I do actually? Or should I leave it because I know I have a use error, the possibility for use error here, but it's not very harmful. I can make a risk-benefit analysis and see, okay, I can live with this for whatever reason. So it's really here, just be super careful that you don't introduce new use errors by accident. And then, of course, here with the methods, formative testing, expert reviews, whatever, so that in the end you have a good device. So I should come to an end, I think, yes. For me, the integrating UX into risk management processes looks like you really need to know what people are doing with your device. And that doesn't mean only the primary operating functions, which are luckily deleted now from the 62366 standards. They are stupid. But you have to analyze every task that people are actually doing with your device in whatever circumstances. That's really, really tedious work. Lots of observations, but in the end, you will derive all your use errors from there, evaluate how severe they can be, so to what harm or what hazardous situation they can lead, and then design mitigations. And of course, document it. Because then in the end, you actually then, compliant to MDR. And I don't know what your experience is, but in my experience, the auditors and the people at the notified bodies, they start to ask about how we integrate risk analysis into our usability processes. And I think that's very good. I'm prepared, and we can demonstrate that we have done our homework. So I actually estimate that in the future, the notified bodies will have much more scrutiny here, which is a good thing because it makes medical devices much safer and much more usable. So, to close up, Alexander Pope said, "To err is human, to forgive is divine." Unfortunately, the auditor will not forgive you. So try to limit your errors here. We all make mistakes and errors. There's just no way to avoid them all, but our job as UX designers is to see where use errors can happen, to a good analysis phase, detect them in our testings and informative testing rounds, and then design something that at best case prevents the users from doing those errors. That is the absolute best and not always achievable, but this should be our goal, that we actually prevent people from doing errors as far as possible. Because use errors can cause harm, and I think a good medical device design is a design that either limits the harm, the potential for harm, or prevents users for getting harmed in the first place. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
So we have Marissa Bierman. So she has a question here.
Okay.
So the question is, how do you present your results of the, I'm assuming it's going to be UFMEA. Thanks.
To the management or to, well, okay, to the developers or the development team. I usually integrate them into the workshops, and we then do this together. In the end, it's usually a really long list with things that we assessed, and then of course we focus on the most critical ones where we see, okay, this use error can actually lead to a harm, severe harm, catastrophic harm, whatever, and this then goes to management as well, because they need to be aware. I know companies who do this in their internal reporting system, which I really like in Jira or something like this, because it's like, so they treat this like an adverse event, which has not happened yet, but has to be looked at. And I really like this approach. So from the first time it comes up, you put this into your quality management system and then can deal with it later.
Okay. We have another question here from Yella. And the question is, I wonder how this goes. Say we have a faulty device. Do we need to prove that we did user testing? Do we need to present reports?
Yes. If there's feedback from the markets that, for example, the user hurt a patient or whatever, and the authorities will come to you at one point in time and they will ask you, did you know about this use error? Then you have to present your analysis and your risk management reports and all those things. And if you know about this use error and you have installed a mitigation and proved that it actually worked, then this is actually okay, because we know use errors can happen. And you have thought about the consequences, and hopefully the harm is not too severe. But if you don't know about your use errors or what could potentially happen, and then something in the field happens, this can lead to device recalls, as we have seen in the examples.
Okay, thanks for that. So the next question we have would be, in the example presented in the UFIM workshop, wonder why the 5-year-old instead of the real user, that may be the older, to see what the user could do to device.
Yeah, okay. Of course, the real user is always, that's the best. But sometimes it's really hard to get real users for whatever reasons. And those workshops, I've done some that lasted about a week. And you just can't take a user for a week into this meeting room. So to just get a really good impression what people can do wrong with their device, or wrong in parentheses. So kids are usually really great to find stuff that you never would think about. Okay.
And then we're going to take one last question. This is from Chrissa. How do you recruit young children to participate in workshops?
Oh, okay. Candy?
That works well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. There's on your right hand side there, I see that Melissa just made a comment. I don't know if you can see your chat box on the right hand side there.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Melissa Tienison, she's working out of Amsterdam, or Holland, I should say, at this moment. Okay, guys, what we're going to do is our next session is going to start in about 10 minutes time. And if you want to take a quick walk around, stretch your legs, coffee break. Thanks again to Tobias. We'll start the next session at 10:15 with another chat. Thank you, Tobias.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for your